You're listening to Greater Good Radio Hawaii. Please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. Today's guest is John McManus, Managing Partner of Baywest Properties. John has over 15 years of real estate experience and numerous projects totaling roughly $250 million in sales. Can you share with us any more lessons that he may have taught you that would carry you through your business success?
Well, yeah, sure. Jerry is he's really shared and been an incredible mentor, and I think really just the whole idea of someone wanting to get into this business. It's such an unusual business to try and, you can't just really walk in and start, open your doors and you're open for business. So the whole idea of having, that mentor has been so valuable to me, and I think, obviously he knows how much I appreciate it, but I think that idea and, people in business that can take the time to do that and sort of pass on a lot of that knowledge is really key. So, it was invaluable for me, and I hope at some point I can do it and pass it on to someone else.
So did he actually take you under his wing and he would share a lot of things openly with you? How did different people mentor in different ways? What was typical of how that relationship worked?
My experience was an open book type situation. And I think for me it was particularly interesting because at the time Jerry was, he was also in brokerage, and so we kind of were able to take this business, together, and along with Craig Valley, our third partner in San Francisco, and really kind of grow it and move it in a different direction and move beyond brokerage into redevelopment, and which that transition is always difficult to make because of capital restraints and different areas. But I think staying creative, and we operate a lot like a band. We've got different skills with the partners, and everyone has their own area of expertise.
So what do you think was the biggest thing that you learned in that transition? Because a lot of people can't make that transition from, brokerage and sales into actual redevelopment, into a, kind of a rebirth, if you call it, right?
Right. It was actually a very natural fit for us at the time. Certainly the market was getting a lot better in California, and then we had always been keeping an eye on Hawaii, and I always wanted to come back to Hawaii. And in my mind, we were kind of working to be able to come home, So there are certain areas of risk that come along with the business, and you just have to get comfortable with the risk and really surround yourself with people that are experts.
Did you guys do anything in particular to mitigate that risk?
Not really. You gotta roll the dice,
Mm-hmm. The one thing I wanted to know is when you first started making those cold calls, what can you tell us what those initial cold calls felt like, how it went for you? Because you sound, you really sound smooth now, and back then everyone knows their first initial calls is. I know mine when I first had to do some cold calls. It was brutal. I mean,
was that your
I was
first
shaking
experience
in my
doing
boots.
that?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Were you scared?
It's just I tried to make it like a game, but
He's very positive.
The first two calls, I have to tell you, I'd look down at my watch and say, when's happy hour? I mean, it was brutal. And so many people can. I'll tell you one thing though, the calls that now come into the house, I've softened on. The whole. How about this? Why don't I call you at home, and you can, when you get the calls at night, over dinner.
Mm-hmm.
For a while there, I was like, well, just ask them for their home. I'd ask Malia. I'd say, tell Malia, my wife, well, listen, get their home number and tell them we'll call them back. So, it's just a funny thing. The whole idea of cold calling is it's a very interesting way to market, but it wouldn't be my first choice. Let's put it that way, and I wouldn't want to do it again.
Was it scary? Did you stumble with your words? Did you get past no? I mean, how far did you get?
At first, not very far, but when it's funny. The longer you have someone on the phone, you can kind of create conversation and things warm up, and then you can really discuss it. But I think for every 1,000 phone calls, you might get five deals. But
I'm just wondering, was your first yes a transaction that carried through?
The first call?
No, the first yes, like the person that said, yeah, maybe let's talk, and it progressed into a relationship. Do you remember?
I can't remember, but in San Francisco there were some very colorful calls. So that one wouldn't stick out, but I got invited to a lot of different parties and things, but
over a cold
I'm not
call?
even sure some of these people owned real estate, to be honest with you.
So how many no's did you get before you got your first yes?
Oh, probably 500 or 1,000. I had a lot of free time.
What kept you going then? What kept you going? If you after the first couple no's, you're kind of like, oh my gosh.
What kept me going at the time was really that Jerry said, look, trust me, this is the way you have to, really get into it, transactional business, and you can really understand a lot about people and the business by doing this. It's painful, but just rock and roll.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more on Greater Good Radio.